Hi, I'm George Vrotzis. This is Premeditated Fitness, and we're going over the squat pattern with bodyweight squats here. So the basics, you're going to take a shoulder width stance, feet below your shoulders, toes pointed slightly out. All right. Your knees are going to track your toes throughout the movement. So knees are like train tracks. I'm sorry, toes are like train tracks. Knees are like train cars. Don't let them come off the train tracks. If you find your knees are going in a little bit or out a little bit further than your toes, just switch your toe position for whatever's comfortable for you, your squatting pattern. All right. The movement of the squat, it is hips down. Trying to squat my butt down to the ground like there's a little stool I'm trying to sit on. It is hips down. Whereas the hinge is hips back, squat is hips down. Okay? You want to keep a nice vertical torso throughout the movement. This allows us to keep our spine neutral, keep our back safe, avoid injuries, and when we transition to the goblet squats and we're holding weight in front of us, a vertical torso allows us to hold the weight better. If you start bringing your torso down, the kettlebell's going to come to the ground. So keep that nice vertical torso. With this movement, when we are descending into the squat, we are doing just that. We are descending. Our hip flexors right here are pulling us down into the squat. We are not dropping into the squat. If you drop into the squat, you lose all your tension and it becomes harder to come up out of the hole. So pull yourself down into the squat. Once we pull ourselves down, we drive up to standing. We have full extension of the hips and the knees, quads and glutes flexed. When we're breathing throughout the movement, we are going to breathe in at the top and brace our abs. When I say brace our abs, I mean take a deep belly breath and then try to pull your belly button in. Your abs will be nice and tight. We're going to hold that through the descent and then slowly exhale as we're rising up out of the descent. So another breath in at the top. Abs rebraced. Okay. Worry about getting the movement pattern down first and then match your breathing with the movement pattern. So before we start, some of you might have some problems with depth. Well, hip mobility, ankle mobility can lead to that. We sit a lot. It's common. So what we're going to do is before you start practicing your squatting, we're going to practice it with an implement we're sitting on. So get a box or a stool or a chair or something that's low enough that it would be a comfortable seat. Take your squat stance in front of it. Line up your feet, shoulder width apart. You're going to squat down, and as soon as your butt touches, you come back up. And then back up, down, and back up. Make sure you're pulling yourself down and back up. And it's rise as soon as you make contact. Don't sit and settle because then you're going to lose all your tension and lose some stability. So practice that for a bit and get comfortable with it. If getting down even that low is difficult for you, then for as long as you need to during the challenge, use a box or chair or bench, whatever you have to sit on when we're doing squats. You don't need to practice without the safety device to make sure you don't get stuck in the hole, or it just acts as a safety net confidence-wise as well, and will let you perform the movement with confidence, okay? Once you've done it with a normal height chair, if you have something shorter that you can sit on, like a toddler stool is perfect, but I mean a lower sturdy box or a lower sturdy coffee table works as well. Same thing, line up in front of it, and you're going to squat down to it, and as soon as you make contact, come back up. And back up, down, and back up. Because that's what the squat pattern is. You're trying to get your hips down. It's just like you're trying to sit on a toddler stool. Okay? So if you have something shorter, try that out. See how that works for you. A few common errors with the squat movement that you may be experiencing. One, if you're coming up on your toes. So I'm squatting down, but I'm not able. When we drive up, we want to keep our feet nice and flat. Okay, we don't want to rock back on our heels. We don't want our toes to come up on our toes. Our entire foot stays flat. You're driving up through the midpoint of your foot, right in front of where your ankle meets your foot. But for a lot of people, they'll come up on their toes. So we're squatting, and they come up on their toes, or squatting, and I'm driving up, and my heels come up because I'm coming up on my toes. That could be for two reasons. One, you're not keeping your torso vertical, and that could attribute to it. So check that first. That could be addressed just by getting your shoulders down and back, your chest up nice and big, and that could fix keeping your torso vertical, which might help with you going up on your toes. But more commonly, it's an ankle mobility issue, and people have problems because they don't have the mobility in their ankles to get that deep. So to work on that, you get something that you can stand on. 2x4 works great, but a couple of weight plates if you're at a gym, as long as they're the same size, work well also. And you're just going to raise up your heels. And then you're going to do the movement the same exact way. And when you do that, that takes the ankle mobility issue out of the equation and allows you to practice the movement until you gain the correct ankle mobility to be able to do it flat-footed. If that is the case for you, practice the 6-point rocks with the toes active most of the time, because this right here is a lot like the bottom of a squat. So practice your rocks from here, and that'll help you work on both hip mobility and ankle mobility. Another common mistake is the rounding of shoulders or back. So I'm squatting, but I'm not keeping a nice flat back. My shoulders are rounded down, and that's causing, my chest is caved in and my back is rounded. Just think about keeping your shoulders back and down, or your chest up nice and big. It's the same motion either way. Show off imagine you got some letters on your chest, Nike or whatever, and you want to show them off and stick it out. And keeping your chest nice and big, your shoulders down and back, will keep your back flat and prevent you from rounding. Because doing this with body weight squats, with no weight, is not a big deal. It's not ideal, obviously, but you're probably not going to hurt yourself. If you're doing this with heavy weights, you're going to hurt your back. So keep that back nice and flat by keeping your chest out, your shoulders down and back. And finally, the last common error is at the bottom, the knees cave in. Start squatting, I'm driving up, and somewhere either at the very bottom or as I'm starting to drive up, my knees come in. That's a common error. So if you have the proper mobility to get deep, when you get deep, use your elbows to drive your knees out. That can just be a physical reminder to keep your knees out, and that may fix the problem. If you're still having problems with knees coming in, think about how you want your feet to grab the ground and almost torque them a little bit, twist them out, like how you would open a jar with your hand. Do that with the ground with your feet. If you keep that slight tension where you're trying to push your toes slightly out and your heels slightly in as you're squatting, that makes keeping your knees out and tracking your toes a lot easier. And again, if you don't want your knees caving in, but if your knee angle is different than your toe angle, try different stances. Some people, it's rare, but some people like to squat with toes straight forward. It needs a lot more mobility. Some people like their toes out a lot wider. Play with it and see what works for you. That may help. Adjusting your feet so that your knees can track your toes might help the knee issue. But if it's just simply knees caving in, drive them out at the bottom, or grab the ground with your feet and grip the ground. Apply that little bit of tension. All right, try these out and let me know how they work for you. Talk to you soon. Okay, once you've practiced squatting with a stool or chair to sit on. You're ready to practice squatting without anything below you. And it's the same movement, especially if you use the lower chair or stool to sit on. Same exact movement. Feet shoulder width apart, nice and tall. Toes slightly pointed out. Your knees are going to track your toes. Nice tall torso. Keeping my crown of my head up to the ceiling, nice and tall. And I'm going to pull myself down and drive up. Pull myself down and drive up. From the side, down, and up. Practice the movement slowly. We're trying to learn the skill of squatting here, so we don't want to start doing, a cardio bodyweight workout. Okay? We want to perfect our form. So just do it nice and slow and controlled. Do a couple reps at a time. Shake it out in between. Shake your legs like a dog trying to get water off it. Keep them nice and loose. And then go again. The more you practice it, the more you'll get comfortable with it. If you're still having issues at the bottom, one great thing you can do is extra helpful when you're watching TV, is just spend some time down here in the bottom of the squat while resting. This is the position that humans used to rest in all the time. You'll see toddlers do it naturally, but adults, we stop doing it. So turn on the TV and pull yourself down into the bottom of the squat and watch TV from here. When it gets to be a little much, drive up, shake it out, walk around, and then come back to it. When you're down here, you can use your elbows on your knees to kind of rock back and forth and pry those hips open. And just spend time down here and get comfortable with it. But go ahead and work on the bodyweight squat and let me know how it works out for you, and I'll be back soon with goblet squats for you.